Hope your day or night is going well. Wanted to try something new there for the first 2 minutes and roughly 40 seconds or so to just come here in the now of stillness, the present moment. It's sometimes hard to do because we have so many distractions: social media, other people, deadlines and events we have to do, past and future challenges we have faced and may face, and how we can get lost in thought with those. But let's just start here for right now. And as always, I will try to be aware of the time, but feel free to not watch this entire video, only what suits you. When thought occurs, our first instinct, or at least mine, if I have to speak from the me, although who is the I, who is the me, if you want to go down that road. One of my first thoughts is to notice that I'm not sure what the origin is of thinking, of thoughts, their creation. We know that some come from outside sources, scenarios, settings, events, people we interact with, environments, positive, negative, whatever else it might be. Although assigning positive and negative to them might in itself be something we should be cautious with. Because often in negative situations, it's a lesson we have to learn that the universe might be sending to us. We might not know why, and we might not agree with wanting to learn that lesson in that moment. And maybe that's not an objective, every single situation is a lesson. But let's not get lost in description. Let's not get lost in division of thought. Let's stay here and recognize a few factors that we can employ once we are aware that thoughts are occurring and we have some amount of control over this process. Whether it's full control or no control, I don't want to debate free will here today because that's a whole nother thing of getting lost in concepts and separating and dividing. Let's just stay with the simplistic here, now. So a thought comes up, and the good thoughts we don't really, we think about them, but we get happy with them. Emotions are attached to them. Attachment is another idea we would have to tackle here, amongst others. But knowing the origin of the thought isn't always possible because sometimes they come up randomly. Sometimes you dream something, you have no idea why you dreamed it. It's out of the blue. There might be some psychology you could go into there as to why you dreamed it, or some kind of meal you had from the previous day that caused chemical reactions in your biological systems. But when a negative thought comes up, first of all, why am I calling it a negative thought? And secondly, there's other ideas as well. But secondly, am I thinking about a past event that has gone and passed, and I'm reliving it like a broken record, and I'm stuck? Or am I thinking about something in the future which is not now? while we do have to prepare for our futures, the only action we can take is in the immediate now. But we also have to, it's like a simultaneous thing. You have to live now and prepare for the future, right? That's why they say don't be happy only on your vacations, because you won't fully live up until your vacation if you're not living now, if you're stuck perseverating on what's coming in the future. But back to the not the time aspect of past, present, or future, but the emotions aspect, the labeling of excuse me, I'm not feeling well, so if I sound congested, that's part of my issue right now. The challenge of positive versus negative thoughts and labeling them as such, right? You have a thought that is negative. Can you just observe it? Not identify with it, not let it seep into your bones of being so objectively true and negative that you'll never be able to overcome it, kind of thing, letting it spiral to have bigger effects like a monster that keeps growing. But can you just observe it? Because if you can, one of the things that you might be able to tell yourself in the truth of it is that this comes from an outside source. It is a reaction you are having to an outside source. Someone cut you off in traffic. A family member or a friend said something because they are just a rather aggressive person and they are fine with saying things that will hurt people because they're in a lot of pain. You have a manager who only at a job who the only type of management style they have learned with leadership is through fear and obedience. Very militaristic style of leadership. Can you observe the thing they have said to you? It's hard to just observe it and not let the thing go to an attachment of a feeling of sadness, of frustration, of anger, of resentment, of envy, of greed, of pessimism, being consistently pessimistic in our cycles of thinking. But can you just sit and observe the thought? And for lack of a better phrase or action, try as little action as possible with the negative thought. And this will get easier with practice. The thought comes up. In 4, hold 2. Out 4. Several breaths. To come back here. To now. Not 2 weeks ago, with the coworker who said something really mean to you about your job performance, and now you're navigating a new, weird, awkward relationship with them as coworkers. Not in 6 months from now when you have that holiday coming up, which you're dreading because you don't like spending that much time with some family members who don't agree with the choices you've made in your life, and they're very vocal about it. They're very critical, not in constructive ways, but in destructive ways. Constructive versus constructive versus destructive criticism. Some people only giving criticism to feed their ego and to fill the pain that they have with inside. It's not to say that all of these situations will occur in the one thought that you have now. It is to try to observe the thought as it arises and understand that while thoughts are in our heads, are they us? If a person has a thought of shame, sometime they've failed in the past before, or, some, you know, humanistic feature of their body they've been made fun of for. Maybe let's just take an easy one, your height. Okay? You've been mocked for that for some reason. Is that thought or that sentence about your characteristic that now becomes a thought in your head, is that really you? It sure feels like it, doesn't it? Every time when I was much younger, or almost every time, someone would mock um, and belittle and dehumanize my appearance for the pigmentation of my hair. It felt like a personal attack. And if you are, again, as always, being physically attacked, defend yourself. You have that right. But what you'll notice with many words, not all, again, you don't have to have a rule here that's so concrete. That's part of the issue. You need a flexible, go with the flow kind of mind for some kind of peace, inner tranquility. But when you notice that many of the words are not us, the shame you feel about letting a family member down because they requested something huge of you, it took too much of your time and energy, and then you didn't get the thing done and they were really disappointed. Well, yeah, but were they considerate of your time, the efforts you put in, the fact that you're trying to be a good person and do the right thing, and yet nothing you can do will please them? And this is not meant to be a projection onto my situation in life that I've had before, your situation in life. It's just to step back and observe scenarios, thoughts that come up with them, the fact that we label them good or negative, positive or negative, the fact that we associate so many emotions and feelings with thoughts. Sometimes it helps us thrive, and other times it literally paralyzes us. It literally freezes us to where we can't do the next step. You've been rejected by 9, 10, 15, 50 jobs because the market you are in for the given job you're trying to apply for is still, considering all the things in the modern age, somewhat competitive. Thoughts of doubt start to creep in. Am I good enough? Why doesn't anybody want me? Why did this company choose one other person besides me when I was one of the final people for the position that could have been chosen? I need to pay rent. I want to be able to go out and have fun with friends. The person I'm dating, I'm finding out is a little more materialistic than when I first met them. That's a difficult one. The goal here is not to judge yourself with the thoughts as they come up, but to recognize that patterns emerge, that you get into routines, that you assess the gravity of a thought that comes up, that there are some life situations where you need precise, exact, and no fault thinking immediately, right? You step out into the street, a bus is 10 feet away, you got to move back or you're. But are all of life's scenarios like the bus scenario? I try not to use the word I in videos like this, but I will just for the sake of clarity because the whole concept of I would be its own video itself. Who is the I? But I come to the opinion that we deliberate and choose on the side of quote unquote negative or pessimistic association with our thoughts too much. And it's easier to think negative, to be pessimistic about how things are going, to realize the number of things you do have going on in your life and to just at one point throw your hands up and be like, this is too much, I can't handle all this. And yet how many times have I actually sat down to reboot, if you will, to really sit with the idea that I've never coached myself with my mental thinking and my processes like I would if I was listening to a trainer going to the gym. Gym for the body, reading and meditating and thinking and observing for a healthy mind. To change routines, much needed to be changed. And it's really hard to do that at times, admittedly, when your friend group is not really about that, bettering themselves. You have a family member that you are dependent on, and they do not see any benefit of doing this kind of mental explorations. Maybe because they have so much pain and suffering from their past that they don't want to face the actual truth on something. Or maybe you have a person in your life who, and if this is you, I hope this doesn't feel like a call out, but who only believes through their life experience, whether as they were born or from generational trauma that many people will claim exists as a reality. The only way they see the universe is through a pessimistic lens. That life is aggressive, that life is negative, that all of life is fighting between people, a struggle for power, and that there is no aspect of inner peace or real meaning. It's almost like a perpetual hopelessness, if you will. And that's not to knock depression, that's not to knock anxiety, that's not to knock any type of traumatic events people have gone through. But it is to name that at some point, I as a person must take it upon myself with whatever power I have within me, and we have a lot more power than we would be willing to admit, I think, most of the time, to slow the thoughts down and be here. And as Tolkien said in the first Lord of the Rings book, The Fellowship of the Ring, all you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you. And when you recognize that your thought pattern potentially is very negative, don't judge yourself. Learn from it. Learn why it exists. Understand that the I don't know if that's the right word, the artificially created world of social media and everybody having the best life possible of all the different videos and such like that, and meals and trips and extravagant, things they buy and whatnot. That doesn't show the reality of many things that humans go through. Just like when you end up on a website or social media or whatever else it is, where the people are saying you'll be better off once you buy this thing because you have to have it. What are they selling you? Or, excuse me, the relationship advice, which basically says you are perfect, whatever sex you are and your sexual orientation, etc. It is the other person, the other sex, the other person in general, whoever they might be, whatever other human they might be. They are the group of people that have the problem, so here's how you have to deal with them. Doesn't sound very responsible. Don't judge yourself for the negative thoughts. Observe them. Walk with them. Let them be heard. But you'll find when you let them be heard and you let them sit at the dinner table, for example, or many people have used in the past the example of observing them as clouds and the sky changes, the sky being your mind, they will dissipate. And if you need an example, I forget who said this also online, you can look it up. No one can stay angry all the time. You have to literally remind yourself of why you're angry to force be angry. Like, your life can be in shambles and you can have gone through hell. Absolutely. And it can be really difficult to go through those steps through hell. But at some point, I have to choose to believe that I am able to slow the thoughts down, to not create problems which only exist in my mind. There are plenty of problems, plenty of attacks, violence, aggression, actions from other people, and interactions with other people in the world that can hurt us, admittedly. And we should be aware of those. But my friend, if you come to find that your mind is always on the defensive, and you see life literally as a pessimistic universe with no purpose, how do you expect things to get better? You say you want them to get better, but we know that our greatest ideas and the times where we do feel good in life, they do sometimes begin with a certain action. But we also have many thought processes which really can be beneficial, the flow state, if you will. And when you learn the skill of less identification with thoughts, we begin to understand that thinking can be a great tool, but we should also be aware of what limits it has. So proceed with caution, but also with acceptance. You're going to do the best you can today. The work you have to work on, get focused and get it done. Get that sleep that you've been lacking. No amount of scrolling, endless scrolling, even though you think you're like, oh, this is so cool. These different videos. I love these different videos. Sleep is more important. But social media will never tell you that because they're competing for your attention, as are the thoughts within my mind. But when I realize that I am the thinker, I can pull back and come to a space to move on the best possible thoughts and actions for myself, for all inhabitants of the world, and the earth as well. It's hard to observe this at times because so many sources attempt to distract us. And you may, in doing this, come to realize that there are so many things you believe about yourself or the world that you're like, man, that's such a drag. Why do I believe that? I've wasted so much time doing this or that. I should have made that relationship or that friendship work. Should have made it work. Here, now. Do what you can, what is plausible, what is real. This is a good place, I believe, for the person who is just beginning real, truthful introspection. Be well. Always.